Conquer and confederate all of Eastern Kislev in the first 5 turns. Before you attack your starting enemy, take one of the blessings so you can start collecting supporters immediately. In these early battles, I like to set up a firing line with my archers at the back and my armored cossars at the front. Then I use my cavalry and my leopard to kite the enemy and try to draw out individual units, disrupt their formation and slow them down so that the whole force doesn't hit my formation at once. You can use Katarin's spells to do damage and also slow down the enemy to help with the kiting. This time I was able to draw out the trolls so we could shoot them down before the rest of the army arrives. Make sure you don't let Katarin get surrounded by the trolls, as they can kill her fast. Keep trying to disrupt and lure the enemy units around with your mobility units, and use Katarin's slows and damage spells to finish the battle, hopefully with minimal casualties. If you want to take the replenishment option in the post-battle options, try to run down as many of the enemies after the battle as you can, as the more enemies that you capture after they've routed, the more replenishment you'll get. Take Route Marcher after the battle, and that will give you just enough movement to attack Vativo on the same turn. After the battle, loot and occupy Vativo. Then recruit a new lord at Vativo and recruit another new lord at Kislev. Start recruiting in both settlements. So including the lords, you'll gain 6 new units in a single turn. Set the relief columns commandment in Kislev so you can recruit more units next turn. Make sure you start building a barracks in Vativo. That'll make the settlement worth more to the AI when we sell it next turn. Before the end of turn 1, we just need to do one basic region trade to set up all the trades that we're going to do in the following turns. We'll trade Zavastra to the Tzarina Enclave. They're willing to give us 4.9k. That's all of their money. However, if we trade the settlement for their settlement of Plesk, then we can still get 4.6k. So we make that trade, build a barracks in Plesk, then we're all set for turn 2. Turn 2, we take Fort Jakova, bring in your other lords to reinforce Katarin. We are a bit outnumbered in this fight, but you can make it a little easier by hiding the majority of your troops on the right hand side where your reinforcements are coming on, and then just putting your fast units far over on the left side visible. So the AI will set up most of their troops on this left side to face your visible cavalry. Meanwhile, you can go over on the right hand side and attack this way. This will just give you a little bit of an advantage to start knocking the doors down and establish yourself in this area. Loot and occupy the settlement and recruit 2 more units. Recruit another lord at Kislev and recruit 4 more units there. Build a barracks in Jakova so it'll be worth more next turn. Now we're ready for some more region trading shenanigans. Now that we built a barracks in Plesk, it's worth more, so we can trade at the Ropsman clan for Volksgrad. We don't make any profit off this, but it gives us plus 40 relations with the Ropsman's clan. Demolish this building, and next turn we'll build a barracks there to make this worth more to the AI. Meanwhile, we want to sell Vativo to the Tzarina Enclave. They'll give us 3.1k for Vativo, but if we trade Vativo for Zavastra, they'll give us an even trade, which gives us another 40 relations with them. Then we trade Zavastra, we can get 3.1k and get a defensive alliance. Then separately, we can take trade. Even though they don't have any money, we can manually take a little more. And by the end of turn 2, we're increasing relations with both of the minor Kislev factions while simultaneously weakening them by taking all of their money, so they're going to be more likely to confederate later on. And we've now got 8.9k. Before the end of the turn, move the 2 lords towards Igorov, ready to attack, and we can end turn 2. Turn 3, we can attack Igorov. Should be able to auto-resolve this. Loot and occupy it again to force a rebellion next turn, and destroy this building so you can build a barracks next turn. Also build a barracks in Volksgrad, and we're ready for some more diplomacy shenanigans. The Tzarina Enclave are already ready to confederate. This may be slightly different in your game. This is on the max difficulty settings, legendary very hard, so the AI might be a little bit more aggressive towards them, but since we've taken all of their money, they're probably unable to recruit any troops, and Throt, who they're at war with, is probably wrecked their armies, so it's made them willing to confederate even though they haven't even reached 150 relations. Most of the time you'd need to get to 150 relations to get that extra boost from the best friends bonus, but in this case they're in such a bad state that they're willing to confederate already. If in your game they're not ready to confederate yet, you might just have to wait another turn or 2 until Throt does enough damage to them, or you've raised their relations enough for them to confederate. We could take the Confederation now, but before we do that, we can take more money from them. If we trade them for Jakova, it's worth 42 to them. They don't have very much money, so they can't afford to pay for it. So what we can do instead is trade for one of their settlements Get a bit more money there, a bit more money there. Keep trading settlements as long as you can to get as much money as you can. Now they've run out of money, but we can still manually raise it a little more. And even though they're now completely broke, we can still keep trading, just manually putting the amount of money that we want. So because we've managed to get some settlements that are kind of in balance, we can keep trading them like indefinitely and make infinite amounts of money, I guess. Now, normally when a faction gains a settlement, they get a penalty to Confederation. I think it's roughly around -20, -25, something like that. However, they've actually already got that minus. It takes a few turns for the gain a settlement penalty to go away. If they hadn't gained any regions recently and we hadn't traded anything, then they would have actually gotten a negative to their Confederation. But because that penalty is already factored in before we even started, it doesn't make any difference. We can keep trading with them. It doesn't change their Confederation chance. So we'll take the Confederation. Of course, all the regions that we traded to them now come back and are ours again, plus all of the money that we took from them. So now we can take those regions that we gained and trade them to the Ropsman clan to bump up their relations. Then we can trade Zavastra and get a defensive alliance. Motivo for more money and a trade agreement. The diplomatic agreements will help raise their relations. Trade Forchkova for another 2,000 gold, and that'll count as another large gift. So next turn, their relations should be a lot higher. Make sure you sell Forchkova before the end of the turn so that the rebellion will spawn at Igorov. Turn 4, and the barracks has been built in Volksgrad, so we can start trading that. And you should be able to trade Volksgrad and do an even trade for one of their regions. So yeah, we'll trade it for Plesk. So currently our relations are at 32, heading towards 182. So we only really needed to get to 150 to get the most bonus that we can get to Confederation, but it takes a few turns for the relations to actually rise to the total attitude value. So the higher that we can raise that total attitude value, the more that the relations will go up per turn. So that trade gives us another 40 in gifts, so it's heading now towards 222. Plesk for another settlement. Now it's heading for 262. We just keep trading settlements back and forth until we get those relations heading towards a huge number. Finish off by trading for a military alliance. And then we'll keep Igorov till next turn. And we've ended up with their relations heading towards 636. So they're probably going to get hopefully around 150 relations in one turn. In this campaign, I'm going to go after Azag the Slaughterer next. So I'll move my armies east. First, kill the rebels that we forced to spawn at Igorov by selling all the other regions. And then move all your armies up ready to attack Azag on the following turn. Build a barracks in Igorov just in case you need it for one more trade. And with a bit of luck, on turn 5, you'll be able to confederate the Ropsman clan. Now, it will vary a little bit depending on the difficulty and what happens in your campaign. In this particular campaign, the Goromadni tribe took Plesk and probably destroyed a fair bit of the Ropsman clan's strength, and so that made them easier to confederate. If you don't quite get the confederation straight away, what you can do is declare war on Azag. Because we've got a military alliance with the Ropsman clan, they'll be forced to also join the war. Because they're quite weak, they'll refuse to join the war. That means that now they've lost our strength from the military alliance. So it actually gave them an extra 10 points towards Confederation. So if in your game, you're at like -5 or something, then declare war on Azag. That'll give you that extra 10 points by having the Ropsman clan break their military alliance with you. If they don't break the military alliance, then they'll now be at war with Azag, which will mean that they'll feel more threatened, which should also raise the Confederation chance anyway. If you want to take the Confederation now on turn 5, before you do, you can trade Igorov for the rest of their money. Remember, this won't damage your Confederation penalty because you've already got the Confederation penalty from trading regions recently. If you feel like you need even more money, you can always trade Igorov for one of their other regions and then just keep trading regions back and forth to make as much money as possible. If you take the Confederation now, then you've now conquered 8 regions in 5 turns. Next, I would set up an ambush with Katarin. Hide as many of your units in ambush as you can. Leave one army outside of ambush and have them recruit instead to act as bait to draw Azag in to attack you. If your ambushes fail, Azag might come with both of his armies. This is not ideal, but if you don't think you can win it, then you can retreat. Keep retreating if you keep getting unfavorable matchups. If you're lucky, you'll get an opportunity to fight just one of his armies with your main force. Could have done a lot better if we fought it manual, obviously. Ideally, you get the ambush and destroy one of his armies that way. If that doesn't work, you retreat, hopefully get out of range of one of his armies so you can destroy the other. Absolute worst case scenario, you just have to retreat all of your armies. You haven't lost anything. Next turn, you can reform to make another attack or set up another ambush trap. Your armies will be retreating back into your own territory, so they'll get replenishment over the end turn. With a bit of luck, you've reduced Azag's 2 stacks to much more manageable single stack. You can destroy that, then you can just gobble up all of his undefended lands and eliminate it. After you've taken over all of Azag's lands, if you don't want to expand further to the east, you can sell those regions to Ungram Iron Fist for an alliance with the dwarves and have them guard your eastern flank. Next, I'd probably deal with Tzarina. Once Tzarina's been destroyed or weakened enough, go up and deal with Throt, and then deal with Azazel. If you don't want to worry about the threat of Vlad von Carstein while you're dealing with Throt and Azazel, you can trade those regions to Talabheim to create a bit of a barrier to give you some time. This example is just kind of a fast way of just getting as many regions as possible, just to sort of demonstrate the power of the region trading and the diplomacy. I wouldn't actually just follow this guide blindly though. You can be a lot more strategic about it. If we go back to the start, Throt was at war with the Tzarina Enclave and was crushing them. So if we didn't confederate them at that point, Throt would have gobbled up all of their regions. Because we're not at war with Throt at the start of the game, by confederating those regions, it meant that Throt suddenly has no enemy, so he can't attack anymore until he declares war again. Just slows him down a little bit. In this example, we then gave those regions to the Ropsman clan, who Throt was not at war with. So he's just kind of paralyzed for a while, he can't do anything. However, the Ropsman clan were still at war with the Goromadni tribe, and the Goromadni tribe were sort of gobbling up their regions. So by confederating the Ropsman clan, again, we're not at war with the Goromadni tribe. That just stops that war and stops Kislev losing regions in the north. Of course, that won't stay that way forever. Eventually, the Goromadni tribe or Throt or someone else is going to declare war on us and the northern regions will become vulnerable. So on turn 2, we traded Plesk to the Ropsman clan, but that left a vulnerable settlement here for the Nochovsky to take. If we instead hold on to Plesk, we're not at war with the Nochovsky, so they can't take the vulnerable settlement, and they'd have to attack the much more heavily defended Volksgrad, which would hold out for longer. Meanwhile, Throt's not at war with the Ropsman clan, so once we confederate Fort Ostrosk, he won't be able to attack them. So you can use region trading and diplomacy to sort of move your regions or your allies' regions around to create barriers so that enemies of Kislev can't get to the factions that they're actually at war with, or it's harder for them to do that. Ropsman clan is going to be fairly easy to confederate almost any time you want. So as an alternative, there's no harm in feeding some regions and feeding some money to the Ropsman. Let them hold the north for you for a little bit longer, so that if you wanted to, you could spend more time campaigning in the south, maybe even go down and destroy Vlad, then trade Vlad's regions to Reichland so that you've got a strong ally. Just make sure you keep an eye on the Ropsman clan, and if they start losing too badly, you confederate them and take over Kislev's defense. Going back to this example where we've already confederated all of the Eastern Kislev factions, you can still trade regions to Kistalton. This could be useful if you didn't want to deal with Azag or you didn't want to deal with Tzarina. You could sell Fort Jakova, Vativa, and Zavastra to Kistalton. Then he'll guard your southern border. Then you could go up and focus on Throt and the Goromadni. Bear in mind, it's a little bit different with Kistalton because you cannot confederate Kistalton through diplomacy. You're going to confederate Kistalton through your loyalist supremacy mechanic. Now, this is good and bad. The good thing about it is that you don't need to weaken him, and you don't need to worry about your relations with his faction. You can give him as many regions as you want. He can be completely steamrolling. As long as you complete the mechanic, then you can confederate him. The only bad thing about that is that if you feed him a lot of regions, it's going to be a lot easier for him to get a lot more supporters and get up this loyalist supremacy bar faster. You need to make sure that you're the one that wins the supporter race so that you can eventually confederate him. He's a legendary lord, so he's going to be a stronger potential ally than the minor factions, but keep a close eye on him. If he gets too strong, you can use a military alliance to draw him into unfavorable wars, or trade him regions that are going to make him vulnerable to nearby enemy. Also, it's going to be a long-term investment. So if you give a lot of regions to Kistalton, he's going to be keeping those regions until you can eventually confederate him later on. But that might be okay. If you want to focus more on external conquest and just leave Kistalton to guard most of Kislev, maybe you can just keep Kislev and Prague and help hit, so you've got some nice valuable provinces, and then he can just take care of all the crap. I won't go through every different permutation of what you can do with diplomacy, but hopefully this gives you a few different ideas that you can play around with and make your Kislev campaign a lot easier.